So it's so trippy for me to have Varun Chawla here in person. The moment I saw him, I was climbing out of the furnace controlled rotation room. If you're on the factory tour, you know what I'm talking about. And I was like, oh my god, it's the guy from Instagram.
Yes.
So he's a lot more than that. And I also had the pleasure of checking out his co-working spaces just before us meeting in person as well. So everyone, please welcome Varun. He's going to tell me about what he's building at the Eco Startup Ashram, Build 3. Take it away, bro.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So I think we officially got in touch maybe nearly 2 years ago, I feel, through Shehzada. And it's been on my mind, want to come. The place looks beautiful, I have to come. But the builder's curse, if you will, you're just head down in the weeds every day. And that's been life. But suddenly, I think it's Aniket who shows up at one of our events. He says, are you going to Jungli the Nomad Festival? I'm like, no, what's going on? He says, oh, it's happening next week. We have to go. I'm like, okay, we have to go. And then I think he drops you a message. And then you immediately reach out to me. And I'm like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen now. And so whatever's meant to happen is meant to happen. And this is one of those moments I felt like I can make these 4 or 5 days happen. And there's something fun going on, so why not? The rest of the conversation goes as, listen, Nomad Conference. The closest I get to a Nomad Conference is my dad ran a travel agency. You know, I've not been a nomad really. So I said, Divi, what are we going to talk about? And Divi, like in true Divi style, like gives me pointers that are perfect. And he knows the room. He knows what will be powerful, useful, interesting, exciting for you guys. And he gives me these pointers. It's basically talking about my startup journey and how I use it to reach my Ikigai. You know, that's in essence what I'm going to talk about. Of course, we can talk about various lessons and Q&A and all of that. But it's going through my startup journey to find my Ikigai. Yes? Does everybody know what the word Ikigai means? Yeah? Just show of hands, please. Who've heard the word, and now keep those hands up. So almost everybody's heard the word. Now keep those hands up if you've gone deeper. You've read the book, or you've done a workshop, or you've read a blog or something. Okay, so that's fewer. Yeah, perfect. No worries. This isn't a workshop. I do a workshop on Ikigai, by the way, but this is not that. So yeah, I'm just going to talk about my life, my journey, my learnings, and I'm hoping that can be useful for you. So this is a little bit of my sort of eat, pray, love moment. I talk about my entrepreneurial journey. I talk about my spiritual journey. I talk about my wellness journey. And I talk about my love for nature and the land and how it all comes together and what I'm going to start doing soon. So join me, walk with me, and let's be curious and have some fun. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Sounds good.
All right, click. So, this is really inspired by Mayank. Mayank's been rocking the Star Wars shirt for the last couple of days. And I was like, yes, that's the perfect way to start this. So, 1997. How many were born? Okay, about half this room existed. Half this room did not exist. Okay, so 1997 is happening. What happens when you're about 16 years old in India, going to plan for college, and you have a lot of curious family members? What tends to happen? Acha beta, kya plan hai tumhara? Right? Well, yeah, that's going on, but I'm an underperforming kid, so they didn't even bother with coaching classes, right? So the question was, what do you want to do with your life? Kya plan hai tumhara, right? And that's the question I would get. The first time it was college, and then I would meet with disapproving eyes. But by the 10th time, I had this down. I'm going to do engineering, then I'm going to work for 2 years, and then I'm going to go for an MBA. And by that time, the 11th person, Cookie, Rashmi, your boy is smart. He's got this. Cookie and Rashmi are my parents, by the way. Right? So that became my answer. That became my truth. You know, like Mayank, I started repeating that story. And so anybody asked at the age from 16, 17, all the way till 18, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do engineering. I'm going to work for 2 years, and then I'm going to go to an MBA, and life will be set thereafter. So I said it so often that I believed it. So what happens? I go overseas to college, Cornell University, to study electrical engineering. So the first 3 semesters, no problem, right? I'm partying, I'm not really studying, so I don't know what's going on in class, but life is good. I'd seen all the movies, right? Again, maybe before some of your time, but American Pie, Can't Hardly Wait. No Jennifer Love Hewitt fans? Oh man. All right. She's beautiful. You should look it up. Anyways, so I'm watching all these movies. I imagine that's what American college is like. I have all the wrong reasons to go to America for college, but I go to college for those reasons and to study electrical engineering. So I do 3 semesters of electrical engineering. I'm below average at it, right? I'm like a B minus kind of student. And I'm really, eating up all of my parents' savings, doing a pretty mediocre or below mediocre job at college. So now this is Varun having a conversation. Varun, what are you doing here? Your parents are paying through their nose and you're not doing so well. What's the plan, right? So the conversation I'm having with myself at this point is you're not doing so well at college, but you're here for another 2.5 years. And how do we make this work? So I start asking questions, asking people, and I quickly find out there's this other cool thing that vibes with me called applied economics and management. Sounds really fancy, but all it is common sense. Applied economics and management is business, undergrad in business. Will that be okay? I said I'll manage somehow. So I make the move back to India secretly knowing that I wasn't in love with my job, but I did have a high school sweetheart back home. So I was hoping to go back home, meet the love of my life, propose marriage because I have Goldman Sachs job, Fortune 50, 100,000, no, by this time $200,000 a year. Now maybe top 1% of India. Check. Life should work. That's a formula, right? Everybody says you do these things, then life works. Well, I come back. Her father has other plans. She is Marwadi. I am Punjabi. Chetan Bhagat wrote a book about us. His ending and my ending were not the same. So again, taught me a hard lesson, right? I believed there was a formula to winning at life, and this formula was breaking. First one was I told everybody a story of I'll do this, but that story didn't work out once I actually started living it at college. Then I wanted a high-paying job. I got the high-paying job, but I wasn't happy. Then I thought the high-paying job and this nice college will get me the love of my life. That didn't work out. So some things fucked up, right? What did I want to do next? I said I'll drown my sorrows in entrepreneurship. Sounds logical, right? Life is fucked up, so just put my head down and build startups. So I start building a startup with my dad, right? Family business, right? That's how most Indians do business. I said, why not? My dad's in a travel business, right? Travel's glamorous. You get to go to cool places. You don't have to start from scratch. Dad was already doing a few crores a year. So it was a good business. I could start and not have the hard work to do. Well, if anybody's been to therapy, you may have seen one of these at some point, right? So what this is representing is that in life, healthy relationships look like adult to adult relationships. But our parents, because we grew up with them, have these parent-child relationships, which basically means they always talk down to us and they tell us what to do and they expect us to do it. And if that doesn't happen, then they throw a fit. So my first business went this way. Me and my dad, travel company, very cool, glamorous, blah, 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 blah. But no, dad wants to run things his way and he expects me to listen to him. And I'm a young alpha too, and that didn't work for me. So we agreed to disagree and went our own ways. My next startup, right? These really cool people, right? One ran this audio technology company. One was the ex-CTO of NDTV. We're going to make a media technology company, right? Basically, all the graphics you see during sports or during news, during elections, there's all these graphics on screen, these charts and graphs and all of that. Somebody does that work, right? So we were going to do that work, right? So these two guys, really senior, high positions, they've done business, they're like 2 decades older than me. They got this. I'm the muscle, right? I'm the young guy who's going to be like the Aniket on their team, right? So I agree. I agree. So we go to Amsterdam for this amazing conference, right? There's this big conference. I think it's called the NAB conference, National Something Broadcasting. Sorry, I've forgotten. This was many moons ago. We go there for this conference, have these great meetings with TV channels and technology providers. I'm all pumped. This is going to work. This is finally going to be my first successful startup. So I'm excited and they're excited. And after this week-long trip, we get on a flight back home. I'm chilling, I put in my earphones, watch TV and all of this. And then I start to notice this air hostess is coming by our row of seats, like repeatedly. And I wasn't sure at first what was going on. But at some point, she's really like energized and upset. And she's yelling at my two co-founders who are sitting next to me. What's been going on for the hour and a half or 2 hours that we've been in the air is my two co-founders are drinking through their duty free. And not like one drink or two drink, like entire bottle. At this point, they're misbehaving to the extent where the stewardess is saying, we have to turn around this flight. I'm like, oh shit, this business was looking great, but my founders are drunks. I didn't learn. I did this almost again once. I started another business. It was called Audamus Capital, algorithmic trading hedge fund business. Quite a mouthful. Does anybody have any clue what that is? One guy. Aniket.
Wrong, but it's basically you have certain technical setups and algorithms that you predict how the market is going to be based on the previous trend line, previous charts, and you're gonna just raise money and then use that money to invest and make a lot of profit for your investors.
This guy. Exactly. Aniket, you want to do the rest of this presentation? But exactly what he said, right? So I get these amazing co-founders, again, look like, just the right people. One guy had worked at Morgan Stanley and using neural networks had designed their technology systems. One guy was an active trader who had an excess of 30 to 35% annual rate of return just trading by himself in his house. So he had strategies and the other guy had technology. And I was, again, the muscle, the hustle. I would do all of that. They said, okay, we're three, we're going to be perfect, it's going to work really well. 1 year later, the technology guy belongs to a Marwadi business family. His dad starts to pull him in and take up all of his time. So by the end of it, we're getting maybe 2 or 3 hours a week of his time. The other guy who had these killer strategies has aspirations to go to business school. And he tells us after he's applied and gotten accepted into Cleveland Business School that I'm going in a few months. So I'm here committing my entire life to building this. And these two guys, it's a side hustle for them. So what did I learn? How do you pick your damn co-founders? If you're going to get in bed with these people for a few years, make sure they're in it to win it and not just part-timers. What after? Oh, I did one more travel business. I forgot this one. So before Oyo was a thing, we did a version of Oyo. So as young people who want to travel, this problem all of you know, how do you find people, how do you find places that are affordable, that the pictures you see on the website are the pictures you see when you arrive? When you arrive, you don't get told that, Sir, kamra nahi hai. And if that does happen, there's some chance you get your money back. These were the problems we were solving at my guest house. As a young tech startup, this was difficult because Make My Trip, Yatra, Clear Trip, we're spending typically between 30 to 70 crores a year to acquire travelers. We didn't have those budgets. And we were fighting on two fronts. We were acquiring travelers and we were getting these budget accommodations, guest houses, bed and breakfast, 3-star hotels. We were trying to get all this inventory on, and we're trying to win both battles at the same time. It felt obvious 3 years later, or 2.5 years later, when Make My Trip said, you guys are doing some pretty interesting stuff. We're thinking about investing in you. And as young boys of 28, 29 years old, we're like, yeah, where do we sign? Where do we sign? Right? Well, we signed a little bit too quickly, we realized. We ended up having 2 offers, one from Indian Angel Network and one from Make My Trip. Make My Trip is in the travel industry, so that counts as a strategic investment. And Indian Angel Network is a group of angel investors, so that counts as a financial investment. A strategic investor, for better or worse, also tells you how to do your business because they're in the same space. In this case, Make My Trip wanted us, so Yatra and Clear Trip could not have us. Right? They wanted to win the budget accommodation space, and they thought we were a way to do it. And we were excited, and we didn't care about all the politics and all of this, and we were fine. We're like, we're going to get paid. So one guy was offering 5 crores, one guy was offering 3.5 crores, and we said 5 crores. Right? Because more is always better, right? Bigger is better? No. So I learned the hard way that when you take more money, but from the wrong partner, that can lead to basically a dead outcome. So this was structured as what is called an earn out. Anybody knows what an earn out is? Yeah, not too many people know this one. So what they said was, over 5 years, achieve milestone A, B, C, D, E, and every time you hit a milestone, I'll release cash. Okay? So A, B, C were milestones where cash would be released into the company for the company to grow. And milestone D and E would come into Varun and the other co-founders' bank accounts so that we'd get rich, right? So we did well on milestones A, B, C. By the time we got to D, we were off track. Make My Trip wanted something, we were doing something else, it didn't work. Really what we should have been doing was not selling to a strategic investor, but staying neutral. We should have taken demand from Make My Trip, Yatra, Clear Trip, Booking.com, Expedia, aggregated all of it to keep our accommodation partners happy. Because there was so much inventory in this market, even if you combined all of the business, you could not satisfy the inventory. So what we should have done was work with a handful of players on the accommodation side, just the best of the best, and then work with all of the demand side players and channel that through. That would have been the right call. But we didn't know it. We made a mistake. You live and learn. And I did. Then what I'm probably most known for and most proud of is 91 Springboard. 2011, I'm at my wedding. My partners have brought over a document and I'm signing it. This is the Make My Trip agreement. My salis on the other side are taking off my shoes. I'm signing away my life away here. They're taking away my shoes, and I'm literally walking towards the mandap. This is a scene in 2011, April the 3rd, actually going on. With this journey sort of goes through its muddy journey, as I just explained. I end up in the middle of 2012 feeling like Make My Trip's investing in us. We're on a journey. I'm the second co-founder. I'm not the primary founder. I'm not fully aligned with this. What do I want to do? I'm asking myself these questions, right? So the last 7 years, I've been my own boss. The thought was, at Goldman, I wasn't my own boss. So maybe that guy was responsible for me feeling miserable. But these last few years, these startups, I've been my own boss, right? Life should have been awesome. I should have been excited. I should have been jumping out of bed every day. I should have felt great. But I realized at this point that wasn't the case. I'm not such a good boss to myself. I need to be doing better. So this time, I thought I will. So I decided to I was in the driver's seat. I decided to do something I loved and was passionate about. I felt that was enough. And I started 91 Springboard with the intent to support founders on their journey. because I'd done it a few times now. I'd screwed up a few times, but I'd learned now. I had a headline that said acquired by Make My Trip. I didn't have a bank account that validated it, but I did have a headline that corroborated it. And so I said, I can do this. I can help other founders build their startups. I can be an accelerator. And that was the first version of 91 Springboard in 2012. We opened up in the basement in Mohan Estate in Delhi. It was literally a go down for Usha Shriram fans that the first day I walked into was covered in soot. The entire roof was bats. So I basically leased the bat cave for my first business, for my first location for 91 Springboard. I had leased the bat cave. The good point was it was free for the first year. The bad point was I had to spend a lot of money to fix it up. So we did, right? We spent about 65 lakhs for a 10,000 square foot space, basement which had, those 1.5, 2 feet windows that open up into a little bit of sunlight. So we had that little bit of sunlight. And we were like, yeah, okay, this is not fully terrible. So we get that, no rent for the first year, start fitting it out. And my other co-founder, his name is Pranay Gupta, he used to run the incubator at IIM Ahmedabad. And he knew a thing or two about investing and investors and all of that. I'm like, dude, you get us money, I'll create this space, we'll get startups here, we'll invest in them, that equity will go up, life will be solid, right? So we thought, there's the next formula. Me as my own boss, right? Got plans, figured life out. So I do this. Partners off to the US, meeting fancy people, all of that. I'm working with architects and contractors and choosing colors and pieces of furniture and all of that, right? It's all good. Within 3 months, I delegate that work to my mom and my wife. So it's all good, right? I'm doing none of the work. I'm basically figuring out what the future is going to look like. I'm the planning guy. The family's doing work. My co-founder's in the US raising money. It's all working. Somehow in 1 year, the space is built. Space is full too. That was me, by the way. I filled the space. So we got about 150 people in a 165 person space in 10 and a half months, 11 months. The magic was hosting events there. We would have a 1,500 square foot space in the middle of our 10,000 square foot area that we gave up for events. Anybody who thinks about these call centers would say, you're insane. That seat is revenue, that space, you can put desks in there. We're like, no, this is a community space, is going to have a heart. And it turned out that was our superpower. That space would host 2 to 4 events every month for the next few months. And people would walk in to come, chill, hang out, get to know other founders, investors, mentors, all of that vibe was happening. And people on the way in and way out would be like, what else is going on here? And soon they realized it was a co-working space and they could pay rent and be there and they were going to do that anyways. And if they could do it here and hang out with cool people, sounds like a double win. You're getting double return for one investment. So that really started to work. So that became a formula for us that we discovered a little bit by accident, but it worked really well for us. What didn't work well for us was creating a co-working space in Delhi with no air conditioners. That did not work well. So we opened in Jan. We didn't know the problem for a few months. Huh? We get to March. You can start to see some people bringing their little table fans and doing that stuff. Like, oh shit, what's going to happen? Because we've run out of money at this point, right? My co-founders in America are trying to raise money. He's not doing so well. But the space has opened up. What are we going to do? So we open up the space, no ACs, and we're figuring out what next. So 1 or 2 months, crazy experiments, right? We're entrepreneurs. We'll solve this problem. Nothing's too hard for us to do. So I don't know if you know, but charcoal is a good absorber of humidity. So partly the unpleasantness is because of humidity. So you put these pans of humidity all around the space, pans of charcoal all around the space to absorb the humidity. We do that and we pray. Nothing happens. It doesn't work. Then we go and get these air coolers, right? These desert coolers before we buy the ACs, which we finally give in and do on my credit card, by the way. How we're going to pay, we don't know still. But anyways, we get these air coolers, these desert coolers. And then what it turns out again in highly humid scenarios, they're practically useless. So we bought 3 or 4 of them. The 3, 4 most enterprising people literally pull them up, put them next to them, and it's a one-person cooler. Right? It doesn't cool the space; it cools one person's left half or something like that. Right? And that's what it's doing. And we got 4 of them, and it doesn't work. Finally, like fuck, everybody's gonna leave if we don't do something about this. Credit card, pay 10 lakhs, or no, I don't think it was 10 lakhs. Sorry, 10 ACs. I think about 2.5 lakhs. They were about 25,000 rupees a pop in those days. We got window ACs because they were cheaper, and we just went with them. And they all broke down within a year and a half or 2 years, by the way. They weren't meant for that sort of running load. Fine. We live to tell the tale another day, and that happened. Fast forward. A couple of years later, because of our events, people had noticed us and they offered us their spaces. They said, I've got an office in Gurgaon. Would you like to run this type of activity there? We're like, we don't have money to pay. They said, no problem. Just pay the electricity bill and give us a revenue share. We said, we're in. Then I still sit on the board of my friend's company in Hyderabad. And he was in this really fancy business building, which also had Google. And every time I'd go for the board meeting, I'd notice one floor was empty. Then I asked my friend, whose floor is that? He's like, it's my floor. I'm like, can I use it? He's like, yeah, you can. And we did. And when we were able to open up these two new locations within 2 years in other cities, not being managed and run by founders, we knew we had a business model that works. But we're still in the business of investing in startups, not co-working. So while co-working was working, we still thought we were an accelerator or an investor and we were in that business. It took a very senior family friend to say, hey guys, you're doing something interesting. I'm happy to come and invest and be a co-founder, but what business are you in? So he flies down, spends 2 days with us, and we're like whiteboarding everything. By the end of it, he says, I'll give you $1 million if you become a co-working company. And some make my trip vibes, but yeah, $1 million, let's take it. But it was also staring us in the face in this case. Nobody was giving us money to invest in startups because they didn't trust us with their money. We didn't have a track record of investing, so nobody gave us that. But here was a gentleman giving us $1 million to say, you have 3 spaces, go make 100 or 300 more. And so we took that money, he became a co-founder, and the next 5 years, let's say, were insane. We learned so many things about leasing, about fitting out, in terms of sales, in terms of marketing, in terms of partnerships, all sorts of stuff, compliance. We learned a thing or two about legal issues too. It's a fabulous learning journey. Amazing, amazing, amazing. One of the things that I learned at the end of this journey, which fast forward to 2020, we now had 26 spaces. We were doing about 182 crores of revenue. We were break even, and we'd done it. We were doing well. We were successful. I was famous. I was rich on paper. I'm probably rich in the bank account soon. So I've arrived, yes? Life is done. But again, that inner voice said, something's off, brother. Something's off. And it also happened to be the year COVID happened, which rocked all of our worlds in some way or the other. Mine was no different. My next journey, I was a little bit more mindful. I realized it's not all about the purpose. Sorry, all about the profit. It's also about the purpose. And possibly I can be a better boss to myself if I put in some measure of purpose along with that profit aspiration. So pause this story at this point and switch to my personal life at this point, right? I've just been through a crazy hectic journey building this startup for the last 8 years. Actually feeling pretty damn good, right? Well, anybody know this guy? Yeah, Jeremy Clarkson. His one line that I remember is, when you're young, you're made of magic and pixie dust. So that was me, right? All through my 30s, I'm made of magic and pixie dust. What am I doing? I'm taking 100 flights a year. I am sometimes sleeping 2 hours a night, sometimes 5 hours a night. I am in a lot of tough conversations with my co-founders, with my investors, with my clients, with my landlords, and typically orchestrating win-lose relationships. I'm trying to win. I'm trying to beat them. I'm trying to tell them a story that they will accept so that I can walk out of that room with a deal. That was me. I was not eating well. God knows I wasn't exercising. This was my life. So what did I end up with? I had hiatus hernia, hypothyroidism, fatty liver, asthma, and arthritis. Don't pick one, don't pick two. Give me all five. This was me at 38. If I continued with this life, literally, I think 2 or 3 years, done. So I had to make wholesale changes. It's back to 2020 now, right? So on the business side, I'll pick up in a minute, but on the personal front, I made wholesale changes, right? We're all working out of home now. I'm negotiating legal cases. I'm trying to stay alive as a business. Separate story, we'll get there. But I'm trying to stay alive as a human being also. I happened to watch this documentary called Game Changers. Anybody seen this? Yeah. So it's about plant-based food. And the thought is that a lot of the challenges we have physically come from our diet. And while that's partially true, I realized this is the full kit. Plant-based food was the first one. So plant-based food, yoga 3 times a week, pranayam frequently, along with meditation, intermittent fasting, I started skipping one meal, and finding your people and your tribe. Why are all of us here? This group energizes us, makes us happy, makes us feel good, gives us purpose, gives us connection. Magic happens, right? I was with a bunch of people that didn't do that. I felt like shit. But I was rich, or going to be rich, and I was somewhat famous. So maybe the formula was good, but no, my body was telling me, no, you're doing life wrong, brother. And so I ejected myself from my own organization. I fired myself from 91 Springboard towards the end of 2020. I said, this is not the life for me. I told myself all sorts of stories in the early parts of 2020. You're the founder. You brought in investors. You gave your word. You brought in all these team members. You told them something. All the landlords know you better than everybody. I was telling myself excuses. But I was sick. And I knew it was no time to be telling yourself lies anymore. So none of that. I ejected myself from my own startup. And then I started to look for my Ikigai. We talked about Ikigai. Here's I think a Spanish guy's interpretation of a Japanese concept. So it's a bit of a fuck up, but it kind of works. So there's 4 circles here, right? It says, what do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? And what can you be paid for, right? So what do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? And what can you be paid for? And the intersection of these 4 is your Ikigai. Right? That's what we all want to get to. Most of us are somewhere in the intersection of 2 of these, right? Like, if we still have a job, we're possibly here. What are you good at? And what can you be paid for? That's probably where you're at right now. If you love playing an instrument, dancing, or creating art, but that's not how you get paid, you're probably here. What do you love? What are you good at? That's your passion, right? If you're in the not-for-profit world, if you're in the world that's trying to make a difference but hasn't quite figured out how to make peace with money yet, you're possibly here. What do you love and what does the world need? You're a missionary. Oh, my friend makes a really bad joke about this one. This is, what does the world need and what can you be paid for? Swiggy and Zomato riders, right? Yeah. Because none of us can cook anymore, right? So we need these guys, otherwise how are we going to eat tonight? So, but how do you find all 4? And that's not so easy, right? So at this point, let me carry on my business journey through 2020, right? 2020, March, COVID hits. It's literally illegal to run a co-working space, right? More than 4 people in the same physical space, illegal. So we can't run co-working. What had we done the year before? We'd raised $16.5 million. We'd gone from, I think, 14 locations to 26 locations. The first 14 were break even and we're going to now start becoming profitable. We break even between 60 and 65% occupancy. So when you get beyond 65%, now you start getting profit. So those 14 locations look like they were start going to get profit. And the new 12 locations were going to go on a 10 to 12 month journey of first breaking even and then going profitable. So that was the whole plan for 2020. Well, with COVID, all the existing spaces empty, all the new spaces no longer on a 10 or 12 month plan. Now on some 2-3 year, God knows what plan. We had 2 million in the bank and we thought there was plenty of buffer. Clearly not. Blew through it in about 3 months. Then went back to our investors for an investment. And while we had benefited from the WeWork story up to this point, we'd been able to command a really fancy valuation. We had a $154 million valuation entering COVID, right? We were proud of it and we flaunt it. We were arrogant, I'd even say I was an asshole at times about it. And life has a way of coming full circle, as Papa Shea would say. So it did for me too. And this was that time the investors said, no, you guys should scale down and possibly close down. And it was a good ride, but it doesn't seem like it's your time. But we persevered. We knew something solid was here and there is an opportunity post-COVID was something we were all convinced about. Just there was an uncertain period and how do we navigate that? So for those 3, 6, 9 months, what happens? We renegotiate with our landlords. Less rent, no rent, take some equity. With our team members, less salary, no salary, please some of you go find other jobs. With our investors, can you give us some more money? What terms do you want? With some acquirers, buy us at pennies to the dollar. All of those conversations happen. Because at this point, it was survival or death. There is no ego at this point anymore. That's where we were at. Now, towards the middle of 2020, some of our investors say, okay, we'll entertain this conversation. After the first 5-6 months, you can see how the phases have gone in some of the other countries. So people are able to see there is an end to this cycle. It doesn't last forever. It's not a one and done event that wipes out everybody, right? It happens in phases. So some folks are like, okay, we'll have that conversation. We end up raising $3 million at $18 million valuation. That's a 1/10, nearly 1/10 valuation of our pre-COVID. But it was that or die. So we're happy to have the money. We push forward. And 2 years later, I'm proud to say that we're still around. We're doing 350 to 400 crores a year. We have now 45 locations. We produce 25% EBITDA or about 90 crores of cash every year. It's a very successful, good business. I'm proud of 35,000 clients served and counting. But there were some tough times. And as my co-founder would say, never waste a good crisis. My biggest thing in that crisis was reflecting on my Ikigai. And while I got us through the initial period, we've had a professional team of CEOs and COOs build us in the last 5 years. Coming back to this, what is my Ikigai was the only thing on my mind towards the end of 2020. I don't want to be doing that business anymore. It didn't make me tick. So what do you love? I realized I'm an artist. Just my canvas is entrepreneurship. So I wanted to work with early stage startups. That's where the magic happens, right? Who are the founders? What's the business? How are you going to charge people? What's that website going to look like? What's the brand? How much are you going to charge for the product? What's your branding going to look like? All of those things. That's the magic. That's the early stage. That's fun. That's exciting. That's my jam, right? So I wanted to play in that space. That's what I love. What are you good at? Anybody read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers? Yeah. The one-line summary? Anybody? Yeah.
Basically, like there's a set of people who are the exception to the rule. So, like what you believe the anomaly would be, not that.
And to become the exception, you have to practice something for 10,000 hours, right? So if that's Malcolm Gladwell's formula, I was passing that when it came to what are you good at. I had done 6 of my own startups at this point, 10,000 hours. I had invested in a few dozen startups. I had mentored A couple of dozen sorry, I said that wrong. I had done my own 6 startups. I had invested in a few dozen startups and mentored a few dozen startups. So I was definitely checking this box. 10,000 hours done. So I'm good at it too. What does the world need? This was a little bit challenging. I thought it was just startups. But I realized, like fission, you can use that for good or evil. You can make a bomb out of it, or you can make good energy out of it, right? With entrepreneurship too, you can just use it to get personally rich and famous, or you can make the world better and probably do quite well for yourself. I said that's the version of entrepreneurship that makes sense. That's what we all need to be doing. And I said that is what we're going to stand for. And finally, what can you be paid for? If we consulted with founders and sent them an invoice, you're never going to hear from that person again, right? I mean, founders can't afford consulting. But if you work with them, write a check, build with them for a few years, build something of value and say, can we now share in that value we've co-created? That works. So that's the model that Build 3 is built on. And now 5 years later, I'm proud to say that we work with between 600 to 700 startups a year. We're the largest accelerator in the country at this point by applications. We get 20,000 applications, 800 of them get accepted, 400 of them actually join. Then we launched a couple of other programs. We heard our customers, they told us what they need. We created a fundraising bootcamp, which helps people figure out how to fundraise. And then we created a Bloom retreat for women. So we created multiple programs. Then we also heard, while it's nice to be doing this from our cities and spaces, is there a better way to build? Is there a better place to build? And that's what started to take me on my next journey. So I was just talking about Build 3. I said eat, pray, love when I started. We talked about my startup journey. We talked about my wellness journey. But somewhere along the lines, there was a spiritual journey too. In COVID, I was ready to sign away my startup and give up on all of it because that's where the world was going and my business was unviable. And I was okay with that. 6 months later, my mother crossed over too. I mean, 2 really big things happen in a short amount of time. It shakes you. It made me ask myself some really important questions. Why are we here? What am I supposed to do? Where did I fuck up? Why me? If I'm here, how do I do this right? Some of us have pondered these and some of us will ponder them. I'm certain of it. What happened to me? And I realized all these years, I'd been an intellectual person trying to plan and design my perfect life. I would envisage what I wanted. I would lay out a set of things I had to do, and then I would hit them as milestones and then consider myself successful. It's a very intellectual way of driving my startup. I'm running out of time, aren't I? Yeah, sorry about that. I'm going to rush. Yes. So I was using this intellectual formula of running life. Then when I started Build 3, I said, no more of this. That was tough, right? I was really, really sick, mentally, emotionally, physically. I said, that formula hasn't worked. There's got to be another formula. So when my mom crossed over, a friend from college sent me 3 books. Dr. Brian Weiss's Many Lives, Many Masters, Dr. Michael Newton's Journey of Souls, and a third one I can't remember right now. But for the first time, my heart and mind were open to understanding how the world worked a little bit differently. I'd been conditioned with science and, locking away your emotions and you don't need feelings and there is no such thing as intuition. I'd put all of those under the carpet somewhere and I never questioned that, but I was questioning that now. And what I realized was there is a different way to think about life. And books like this, called The Surrender Experiment, taught me that if you just bring the best version of yourself to play every day, as I say, with love and authenticity, you just do that every day, you are going to learn and grow and going to go on this fabulous journey that you cannot anticipate. But when you look back at it, it'll be amazing. So don't worry about what it's going to be. Just go for it like a roller coaster ride and know that it's going to be awesome. Just show up every day being the best version of yourself. That's what I learned spiritually. Now, just the very last thing, I'm going to show you a very quick video on what I'm doing now because many of you have been asking me. And if you'd like to join or partake, I'm all ears. This one. You can bring me back to the next video, please. Yeah.
अनुमान एक पकड़ी पहली ना वैसे हम कोशिश करते हैं that we become conscious founders who are not only wanting to build better businesses but better lives. Founders should be able to build more holistic, fulfilled lives. Right? It's helping them find what kind of business they want to run and also choosing a place where they want to visit from. For founders to live, work, and play in nature. Check out the link in the bio, get some more information. And if this calls your heart, drop us an email and we'll have to catch up. Cheers.
You'll just go 2 slides later. I've given a link to this deck if anybody needs it for any reason now. I think we're over time. I don't want to play that. It's there for if anybody wants to watch it. It's a 3-minute video. But if you just go, there's a little link over there. You can scan it. You can get access to the deck. I also give all the takeaways and best practices or tips if you'd like in a slide later for you to see. And there's videos if that's helpful. Thank you again. This is awesome.
Amazing, brother. Thank you, brother. Wow, that was deeply inspiring, man. Thank you so much. Super authentic, very personal. Please just come back on for one sec. Guys, before we go to our last talk, I just want to take time for one question for Varun. Does anyone have any one question for Varun? Yes, sure.
Varun, what kept you going before you said that you had a phase in life after which you were spiritual? But before that, when there were multiple 6 ventures, what kept you going each time?
I always say there's 2 things, right? There's what you don't want to do, so you're running away from that. And then what you want to do, you're running towards that. There's always 2 things. So let's say right after 91 Springboard, I was running away from a life that felt physically, mentally, emotionally draining for me. And so I was running away from that. And what I was running towards was some sort of purpose, some sort of fulfillment, and all said and done, ghar to chalana hai, right? So you have to earn. So having a place that was financially supportive and felt conducive to me as a human being, and getting far away from my last one, which I'm proud of, but I felt my journey with it was complete.
Awesome, man. Well put. Thank you so much, Varun. Fun fact for you guys. We had an amazing volunteer working with us last year called Nadeem, who was our habitat designer. Put your hands up if you know Nadeem. Well, Nadeem, half the room over here. So Nadeem actually is now working with Varun as their habitat builder, in a sense. So we were just jamming on like this shared resource pool of talent and opportunities, and I think it's already unofficially in place. And we'd love to continue to co-create with you and collectively have more spaces like ours in India because it's just going to grow the pie.
I think so.
Awesome, man. Thank you. All right.